just realized that I'm the first speaker to speak in English. So you have to change your headpiece. Okay, คุณอนุสรณ์นองพมัต Chairman of SEAISI คุณกริงไกรเพียรยานกุล Chairman of the Federation of Thai Industries คุณวิโรจน์โรตนวัชชัย President of SEAISI distinguished guests distinguished leaders speakers delegates and my fellow colleagues at SEAISI. Good afternoon to all of you. I would like to thank Khun Virot for inviting me to speak here to share with you about the views about trade and investment update on the ASEAN steel industry and the way forward. I will go a little fast, so feel free to ask questions later if you need to. This slide tells you the current state of the world economy. I think there was a presentation earlier about results from World Bank. They have forecasted that this year will be a slow year, but they have also forecasted that next year will be another slow year. So we have 2 years of slow growth coming especially from the advanced economies. And because the advanced economies are slowing down, the rest of us will also slow down a little bit. So what will happen in ASEAN? Let's take a look. We're always talking about inflation and interest rate, which is affecting business. Right, on the left chart is a chart on inflation. What is important here is that you can see that in 2023, inflation is coming down across most of the countries around the world, right? Including ASEAN. When interest rates go up in the US, you're going to have this effect. Currencies across the world, including ASEAN, Japan, Korea, is going to fall, right? And you have seen it over the last couple of years. The moment the currencies fall, it will add to the inflation of imported goods coming into ASEAN, right? And countries that are particularly affected will be those who import a lot of things from overseas, such as Singapore. Some of the others, Singapore is more than 150% of in terms of trade per GDP. So these countries will, of course, be affected greatly, and that is why Singapore has been strengthening the currencies through the year. Right. So the rest of the ASEAN countries, you can see, we have fallen a lot, and the problem is the trade of goods and services are mostly done in US dollars. So we will continue to be affected in the future. However, if you look at the forecast of the growth across the ASEAN region, you'll find that ASEAN governments are actually quite optimistic. Growth is still there. Things are looking good. Domestic economy is improving, a bit slower but improving. Right? We're hoping for tourism. Exports a bit difficult because the external demand is high. But overall, you can see the view is that everybody is very cautious about growth. Okay, risks are plentiful: high inflation, interest rate, weakening economies, tightening in global financial markets. Banks are not willing to lend so much nowadays. Escalating geopolitical tensions, weakening demand, falling prices. Political power in transition is something that is unique to ASEAN. Right? Philippines has a change, Malaysia has a change, Thailand has a change, Indonesia is next year. Transition in power means demand will slow down a little bit. I'm waiting for the transition to take place. But the good sign is improving. Right? So what is happening to ASEAN in terms of climate change? I will touch on 3 main topics. Number 1 is the carbon border adjustment mechanism in the European Union. Now there are plenty of things here. I will just summarize. Right, carbon border tax adjustment in Europe is created to stop carbon leakage from imports coming into Europe. also to stop the manufacturing of goods to move out to countries that are not subject to this carbon tax. Okay, so they are trying to stop all these things, right? And they are now in the transition phase, right? So now everything is just recording numbers, providing documents, but no taxes yet. Taxes will come in 2026, and it is expected to affect the competitiveness of ASEAN steel exports to Europe. Okay, so I foresee carbon tax should be coming up in all the countries in ASEAN. In fact, it is already in their plan. Reaction from China and the US, I think they're also going to put something similar, right? Because everybody is very worried about climate issues and decarbonization. Now, who will be affected in terms of the steel industry as far as CBAM is concerned? But that's way back in 2026. You can see here Indonesia is a lot of coal, a lot of steel products. Malaysia is another one, and Vietnam. Okay, so all these countries have a big exposure to CBAM in Europe coming in the future. Second point. China's effort in climate change. Now, as far as us in ASEAN is concerned, anything happens in China will affect whatever goes on around here. So there's a great number of policies going on. In 2020 to 2022, there's a lot of high-level policies being set. Okay, carbon neutral, capacity swap to reduce capacity, shifting of capacity to the places where they want it to go, right? Scrap reclassified, and now the ban on ferrous scrap imports has been lifted. Okay, so now they allow scrap to come in, yeah? And you know ASEAN is also very short of scrap. It's another issue here. Now the latest set of policies that have come up is at the provincial level, right? So before that, country level, now provincial level, everybody is moving towards scrap and EAS-based steel. They are also promoting scrap to go into blast furnaces, development of EAS in China, right? And they have set targets, even for the provinces. They are looking at emission peaks, carbon neutrality, and all those things. So many changes are coming in place, and I think what is important here is implementation of the EPD, an environmental product declaration system that has been set up in early this year. Now, and to me, an EPD means everybody must declare your embodied carbon in your products. I think eventually it will be applied to imports, and it could lead to a China CBAM in the making. Okay, so these are all threats to the ASEAN steel industry, right? And which are the countries affected by a potential CBAM in China? Again, will be Indonesia and Malaysia. Not so much of others. So Thailand, you don't sell so much to Europe and not so much to China, so it's not too bad. Now, next one is a commitment by ASEAN governments towards carbon neutrality. Right, so all ASEAN governments except the Philippines have set a net zero target. But even if Philippines has not set a net zero target, they have actually put in a lot of conditional and unconditional reduction below business as usual scenario. So they have. In fact, Vietnam is even more aggressive. From 11% here, they have changed to about 11%, and 27 became 43%. So Vietnam is very aggressively improving their targets towards carbon neutrality. So it's moving. Right? Sometimes you don't see the policies coming in yet, but believe me, a lot of things are happening behind the scenes. Right? Now, this is the ASEAN government's direction on climate change. So the broad direction has been set. Okay, so all the ASEAN countries are actually working towards this. It's a very long report, 180 pages. So you can read before you sleep. Very hard to read. Right? But what happens to the steel industry is shown here. The focus is on three areas: finance, getting the money to fund these projects; technology, getting the right technologies to come into the ASEAN region; right? The third one, carbon pricing. Right? Carbon pricing can be in many forms. It can be environmental tax. It can be tax on fossil fuels. It can be carbon tax, which is a direct tax on carbon emission. Okay. What I like to add on here is that I just came from Vietnam, Hanoi, and there was another group, that went through a discussion on carbon decarbonization and climate change. And what I think is the most important thing that was highlighted in that event was that there were government officials focusing on two areas of discussions. Number one is on MRD, measurement, reporting, and validation. Right? So now we are getting people to start recording what they are emitting from their plants. Second interesting development in Vietnam was that the government officers, they have not implemented yet, but they are looking very seriously into introducing a Vietnam CBAM. This is very progressive because you need to have CBAM in ASEAN to stop carbon leakage, which I will show you later. Right? So this is moving. Let's take a look at the ASEAN steel industry. Okay, ASEAN steel industry, right? In terms of demand, has flattened out in the last couple of years because of COVID, because of Ukraine war, because of a lot of uncertainties, inflation, and all that. So it has actually flattened out over the last 3 years. Right? However, while it was flattening out, there was a lot of disruptions in supply chain. Imports couldn't come in, and that's the beauty of it. The local production was able to step up to service the customers. So imports have failed, local production have come back. That is what you see here. Okay? Now the next slide is an important one. This is a slide of imports and exports. Imports into ASEAN and exports out of ASEAN. You can see the numbers over the last decade. ASEAN imports roughly about 40 to 50 million tons of finished steel from around the world. A large portion of them comes from China. Okay? And if you look at the numbers here, 40 to 50 million tons is roughly 60 to 70% of demand. Right? So ASEAN depends a lot of imports, which means that the risk of carbon leakage is extremely high, especially if you do not have a local version of CBAM. Okay, so you'll be tax carbon, right? You're going to pay all these things, but import may come in without having to pay anything. So it will put the local industry at a great disadvantage. Okay, right? So this is a first major problem. The second major problem is shown here. It looks good that the exports are going up. Right? We are exporting steel around the region. A lot of it comes from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Okay, but the bad side about export is you do that only when you are in an overcapacity, and overcapacity is bad news for everybody. Right? So this is what's happening here. Great overcapacity in Vietnam and Malaysia, so they are selling a lot of products elsewhere. Okay. Next slide. Where is the industry now? What are the people doing in ASEAN as far as the steel business is concerned? Right? A lot of people have gone past this. This is on continuing effort. You need to comply. Many people are doing this. They are continuing to improve their operations, reducing energy, recycling, waste management, trying to control emissions, buying, substituting raw materials to reduce emissions. A lot of effort is going. The steel industry has been around for years, and they have always been improving, always been evolving. Okay, so this is what it is. The latest efforts by the ASEAN countries, suppliers, I did a quick survey of about 137 companies across ASEAN, listed companies, and what are they doing? Looking at solar power. It's the easiest one to do, whichever. It's not efficient. I mean, efficiency rate is about 57%, not great. But it is something that can be done now, so a lot of people are doing this. Where there is natural gas, people are looking at where, that's where they want to put the plants. Because that is a source of materials for you to get your hydrogen. Okay, for the future. many people are looking at green steel certification. The problem is nobody exactly know what is green steel. The standards have not agreed amongst each other what exactly it is, right? ASEAN has a lot of very old facilities because the ASEAN steel industry is an old one. There is a need to upgrade and to remain cost competitive. Okay, right? And of course, this one is coming up now. A carbon future, carbon tax, carbon trading. Everybody is looking at long-term climate strategy and looking at MRVs, measurement, reporting, and validation. I will not go through the last one because I got details later, so we'll come back to that one. This chart, this map shows you all the new developments that are coming up in ASEAN, right? So you see that it's all over the place. The red color ones are Chinese mills, Chinese investments intended to come into ASEAN. Okay, so ASEAN is mostly EAF region, but in the last 10 years, a lot of blast furnaces have come up, starting with number 1, Calcutta POSCO, number 2 is Formosa Hakim, 7.5 million tons, number 3, Alliance Steel, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So from 2013, all these have been coming in without stopping, right? And you're going to get this, right? So you're going to get a huge overcapacity within the next 5 to 10 years coming into ASEAN. Okay, and they're all blast furnaces, very big quantities, and okay, so what you see here is that the green columns represent the capacities from EAFs. They are greener. The red one represents the capacities from the blast furnaces. And you can see with the new developments coming in, there's going to be a huge jump in the capacity of blast furnace around the region. The number that we think of is blast furnace emits 2.3 tons of carbon per ton of steel produced. 2.3. Arc furnaces 0.67. This is according to World Steel. The difference is that 3.4 times more carbon from a blast furnace system. So you can imagine, you take these numbers times 2.3, and you take this number times 0.67, you realize the red one will become really, really massive. So which means the industry is being de-green, not green, it's de-green. Okay, so it is a major issue that I hope in the future, any future investment will come in with the latest technologies to decarbonize the industry. Okay, now way forward. Okay, so I've summarized on the left side what I've discussed so far, what is going to happen. Right, as far as the world is concerned, carbon border tax adjustment, China factors, where ASEAN governments are heading, where ASEAN companies are heading, I think these are the things we need to do. Right? Number 1, companies need to start building a roadmap for the future. Right? Start measuring your scope 1, 2, and 3, know where you are, and then you can start strategizing how to bring it down. Continue effort on renewable energy, lower carbon inputs, energy savings, recycling, that will go on. Prepare for carbon pricing. Okay. Look for high quality carbon credits. Look for finance, upgrade facilities where you can. Number 7 is very important. You need a public-private sector engagement. Why? For local seabed. You need a local seabed. Number 2 is to make sure that technology invested and coming into the country must be latest, must be the green ones. You have to look beyond steel for other sector solutions, nature-based solutions or whatever, it could be feasible. And for potential investors, don't bring your obsolete technology, right? Bring in the latest one, green technologies, or you risk having your assets being stranded. Okay, so I'll part with one simple description about all these things. So number 1, the Hydrogen Council actually said the time when green hydrogen becomes feasible will be in the mid-2030s. So imagine that, mid-2030s. Where we are today, 2023, is grey hydrogen and natural gas. CCUS is still in development. Nobody knows when it will become feasible. So let's guess 5 years from now. So green hydrogen, far away. CCUS, maybe 5 more years to go. Now you have grey hydrogen and you have natural gas. If anybody wants to do something, they will look at natural gas because natural gas will be always half the price of blue hydrogen, according to some of the studies that I've gone through. Right? So what will come before all the hydrogen comes? Carbon tax. So prepare for carbon tax and look out for carbon leakage. That's all I have. Thank you very much.